How's it going? We're just letting some people filter in through the wait room at the minute. So we'll just give it another 30 seconds a minute just to everyone's Outlook calendars will probably remind them to log on now. So we'll just give it another 30 seconds to a minute and then we'll kick everything off. Okay. So we'll just kick things off. People will be filtering in the next few minutes. Unfortunately, they'll miss my face and start with Siobhan, but it's maybe no bad thing. So everyone, welcome to Belfast Met's Webinar Wednesdays. So this is the fifth Wednesday in a row we've been holding a webinar similar to today's on a range of different topics. And this has all come about via a programme called Connected, which is funded by Department for the Economy. And I suppose the crux of the programme is to enable academia, so universities and colleges across Northern Ireland, to work together and work with industry to share, I suppose, our experience and knowledge and provide some upskilling in a range of different areas. So in terms of, from a Belfast Met perspective, we focus on a couple of different areas across emerging technologies and then into new product development as well. So today's webinar is exploring the future of work and really looks at some of the human side of things. So everyone pretty much is now remote working, working at home or working from home. Siobhan will touch on that later through the webinar, but really a lot of organizations have tried to come up with solutions and chucked a lot of maybe technology at some of the problems. But Siobhan will look at what the human side of things might look like. But if you are on today and you want to tweet and share on social medias, you can go and share us at E3_Belfast Met. And if there's anything that crops up afterwards, you can get in touch with us as well, say at the end, but you can drop us an email at CEDSI@belfastmet.ac.uk. We are going to have questions answers at the end as well. If you want to, you can drop some questions into the chat function on Zoom here, and I'll pick those up at the end and we can chat through a few of those with Siobhan. But I suppose I'll leave you in the capable hands of Siobhan to take us through the future of work and looking at remote working. Thanks, Siobhan.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you here this afternoon and take you through my own thoughts, insights, and the research that I found in terms of the human skills that's needed to allow us to remote work as best as possible. I'm all about people. My specialism is very much in developing people as individuals, not just transferring knowledge. Over 25 years experience in that particular field, and work with lots of different clients in relation to that. PwC, Merchant Hotel, Bar Library, Deloitte, local councils, as well as delivering on the assured skills within Belfast Met on those human insight types of programs to do that. I'm all about people and absolutely love to increase their self-awareness to allow them to change where it comes from within. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Very much this is going to offer my insights within those human skills that's required for the future of work. We're going to explore how COVID-19 has reshaped the future, or reshaped remote working, sharing those findings with both industry and the empirical research that was completed. Understand that difference between working at home versus at home working, quite a different scene, and looking at areas to focus on the future of work that research has proved, and then listing those topping off with the top human skills that I think you should really focus on, whether it's for you as an individual who're tuning into this, or if you have a team to manage as well. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to take you through that. I suppose putting it into context, we know things have changed dramatically over the last 3 months. Some research that Deloitte completed just last month, in the month of May, in terms of numbers, where the workforce was. So about 62% of the workforce within the UK is either furloughed or working from home. So ultimately we could think that chunk, 62%, a big part of them for the immediate future for sure, because we're not in this just for a sprint at the marathon will be working from home in some sort of way. So we need to put plans in place to make sure that we have the right skills and that our teams have the right skills as well. You know, COVID was something that was sprung upon us. It certainly has changed the working culture. It's just this digital platform that has exploded. We know that it doesn't suit all personalities. Some people prefer that whole tactile, you know, sitting beside someone in an office environment. Other people are very comfortable with it. It's not fit for purpose for all businesses, so you have to decide what works for you. But on top of all of that, there's been some great stuff has happened. You know, all of these changes, which would probably have happened over decades, has just happened in a matter of weeks, which is incredible. So we need to harness the great things that have happened and the speed at which they have achieved, and harness all the good stuff and really adopt it for the future. So it's not all a bad picture. We need to bear in mind just on the 9th of June, the European countries should brace themselves for a deadly second wave of coronavirus, and that came from the World Health Organization. So as I said, it is a marathon, and we need to be mindful of that. Whatever measures that we're putting in place and these skills, it's not just for the short term. We need to look at this from a longer term perspective. Some of the strategies that I believe that you should adopt in terms of remote working is redefine the purpose for that. It could mean something totally different for you as an organization or you as an individual. Reflect on, you know, what is working, what isn't working, recommit so that you're absolutely making sure that those objectives and those outcomes are going to be able to work, and re-engage with your employees if you are a leader of a team, because you don't have that platform where you're bumping into somebody in the car park walking into work or over the coffee machine or the water cooler. You need to re-engage in a different way to do that and rethink about your organization. I think when we talk about rethinking, I'm suggesting that you think about the work, the workforce and the workplace. At the moment, we're just going to look in this snippet in the next half hour is looking at the workforce side of it. Now, this isn't a new concept. It's tried and tested. NASA themselves, who are quite good at getting things right. So they did a big piece of work in preparing for the future of work in April 2019. Because we've been talking about the future of work for a long time, you know, in the technology explosion, but we're in a different position now, and a lot of this research may or may not, as you will find, be quite different. But NASA themselves look at the work, the worker and the workplace. So they kind of did that, and the people, technology and the places that they're working, and the different skill sets and the right talent that was needed for that. So it's a good model to think about in terms of the future and preparing for that. So I mentioned, are we working from home or are we at home working? And when I first heard that, it really resonated with me, because for many of us, we're at home working. You know, the situation is quite different. We don't all have a desk or a free kitchen table. Some of us have a house full of kids that are on devices that are using the Wi-Fi and the bandwidth. Many of us are sitting with slippers on, or maybe looking very smart from the head to the waist. So it's very, very different. Whatever decision that you make for your organization or for you, it needs to be a human-centric approach, you know, to really tailor that and think about that, because working from home, if someone's already got a desk set up and everything, they've got the space, is quite different where some people are at the moment where they're at home working. So that will impact the skills that they have, the resilience, productivity, everything. So we need to be mindful of that as well. Let's have a little look to see if it is reshaping, you know, what it looks like. So what I think for many of us, we can relate to this particular model here, the hybrid model, where you have a little bit of mix of agile and traditional from working remotely. So we could have been working from home for a few days, had a desk set up, had a designated space, whether that was in a bedroom or an office, whatever, but we had a designated space that we would have worked from. And then we would have maybe spent some time in the office as well, whether that was going to do printing, have meetings, maybe there was hot desking, and some people would have 2 days, 3 days. We're all varied. There's no one size fits all, but that would be a model that we're all familiar with. where we are right now, it's quite different for some people, So there's that whole balancing of either kids on your knees if they're very, very young, homeschooling, maybe minding older people, lots of different things, not having the space, all of that there. So remote working can look quite different for a lot of people now. And as leaders in an organisation, if we're managing a team of people, we need to be mindful of that. And if it's for ourselves, we need to cut ourselves a bit of slack and realise that, gosh, okay, this is quite different. So make the best of it you can. But remember, this is for a long term. So if it's something that's going to continue, you need to look at what it's going to be after COVID-19 or getting to that particular phase, because we don't know when after COVID-19 is going to be. This scene here is probably one that many of us are familiar with, a typical Zoom meeting like we're having right now, and connecting with people remotely. So that brings with it opportunities, so then we have a global stage that we can connect with people. Even I've spoke to one organization who is all over the globe, and so they worked a lot with their office in Madrid, for example, and the Madrid office felt much more connected to the Belfast office in the last few months because there's been much more face-to-face connectivity, people putting the video on and having the conversation, whereas there wasn't that degree beforehand. So it has got its positive aspects as well, but we don't exactly know what the picture is in terms of after COVID-19 or getting ready for that there, but we need to think about it. The other thing we need to be mindful of is the communication platforms. There are so many. What's the best one for your organization? And today's not talking about those platforms or the technology side. Some of the other webinars may look at that, but I speak to you about it in the terms of communications. It can be so overwhelming for some people. I deliver a lot of training, and it's in all of those softer skills like emotional intelligence, communications, team building, resilience, etc. And I've been amazed at how well it is transformed to an online platform. And so I didn't deliver any of that before online, and it's all been delivered online now. But over that period of the last 3 months, I've delivered on 7 different platforms. So actually getting to grips with all of those platforms and maneuvering that is a lot. Amy Cuddy, she's a social psychologist, an American social psychologist, is an educator as well at both Harvard and Stanford, as well as an author and a speaker. And she talked about, in this abnormal situation, there's 3 psychological phases. So the first one, I know I can relate to this here, where, when this first happened and kicked off, there was we were really energized, focused. I remember I was delivering some work for the Met and E3, and literally on the Friday, it was right, okay, we'll don't know when I'll see you again, and you need to get your material ready to online delivery, and here's the platform you're going to do it on the Monday or the Tuesday. And that's the way lots of organizations did it, not just the Met. I know I spoke to colleagues that are in PwC as well. It was similar for that there. So that was great. Many organizations worked well where that was concerned, and particularly if they were already agile, to hit that ground running. The phase she believes that we're in, and again I can relate to this, is that regression. So we're 3 months into it, and some people are losing that sense of purpose. They're tired, and some of us have been working harder, some of us not. The work has slacked off. It's very, very different. People can start to feel less productive. So you need to be mindful. Where are you and where are your teams? And again, build that into the whole plan whenever you are thinking about the human skills that's needed to support them as well. In a piece of research that was completed for the state of remote working, over 3,500 people over the world, what they struggled with the most was collaboration and communication. Now this was pre-coronavirus, so but I think that still is very relative. So it's that communication is one of the biggest challenges when you're remote working, and feeling that sense of teamwork and collaboration. And then loneliness, that comes into the resilience and being able to connect with people and engage with people, and not being able to unplug. So there's a bit of a muddy water between work and home sometimes, and sometimes people who would generally work 9 to 5, maybe if they have kids at the minute, they're not quite working those 9 to 5 because they need to do homeschooling. So they get the kids to bed or they get dinner in them, and then they go and work to get their daily day in. So that can get very muddy, so we need to be mindful of that as well. Deloitte did some research on 1,300 workers approximately just in the month of May, over 4 days in May, to see how they felt they were getting on, you know, and there's some statistics there. 55% that their colleagues are just as, if not more, productive than before, and 38% had felt a negative impact on their well-being. And just to, I suppose, we talked about technology. 75% have used at least 2 types of technology there as well. So when I was looking at this and doing my research for you and looking at everything, you know, we looked at some of the pieces that were already completed in the future of work before coronavirus. So another report that was completed by Deloitte, they said the 3 biggest challenges for the future of work was having an agile working platform and workforce, a team ready for transformation, and the technology. So those were the 3 things that they would have highlighted in that particular report that they did a couple of years ago. And innovation and creativity was central for change. So the importance of that was absolute. PwC also did quite a great piece of work in relation to the competing forces for shaping 2030. So they said, strengthen innovation, creativity, empathy, and leadership capabilities in your business alongside critical technology skills. I can nearly say that word. So again, this was all done pre-coronavirus. So the importance of those empathy, creativity, those softer skills that's required as well. Some other pieces of research, the CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, the professional body for HR teams, they argued that human skills and capabilities will always be important to how people work. And that was October last year. And Zurich University, they did another piece of research looking at the points to the whole importance of that socio-emotional or the soft skills within the workforce. And Nesta in 2019, they looked at interpersonal skills, being able to link, connect with other people, that higher order thinking, critical thinking, and learning. So the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn that, consistently do that. All of those led to the importance of the human skills in relation to the future of work. Massive big piece of work. For any of you who are joined us that are familiar with the future of work will be familiar with this report that was completed in 2018. And these, in the World Economic Forum, these were some of the human skills that they believed that the workforce would need by 2022. It would be really interesting to see how different this would look now, or maybe not, as the case may be. But right up there, you can see emotional intelligence, resilience, reflexibility, all critical thinking, all really, really important skills to be mindful of. So I think, you know, those soft skills are just increasingly the hard skills for today's workforce. They're not really soft. It's not a term I would advocate in using, but there's so many terms out there. So human skills, people skills, whatever it is, but they're far from soft because they're mighty when you use them well. So that was the research that was before coronavirus. So let's look at a couple of pieces that have happened really recently. Has the picture really changed? So CIPD got a censure to do a piece of research asking leaders and HR leaders about what particular skills are the greatest need of improvement within their employees and their organizations. This was just, the report was published in June, so this is over the last couple of months. So right up there's technical skills. I don't think that's a surprise for many of us. Some people are more technical able than others, but you know, for people, they find it a challenge. You don't have the IT guy at the end of the phone or down the corridor, or your colleague who's maybe really IT technical and enabled, and you don't have the printer at your fingertips. So it's not a stranger to me or strange to me that is applicable there. But look what's coming next. You know, still those communication skills, the team working skills, and resilience, and the ability to learn and learn quickly so that you're agile enough to do that. So right up there, they're still there. So the picture hasn't changed dramatically for these particular skills that's needed. For the purpose of this time that I have with you, I kind of want to focus on 3 that I have chosen I think are worth really working with your teams and helping them to kind of sharpen their saw and to work more successfully remotely. And for you also, not just your teams. The first one I want to look at is communications. So this is far and wide a big thing, whether we're face to face but remotely. So why is it more challenging remotely? I find that, first of all, there's so many platforms for people to choose from, and people don't have those water cooler conversations to be able to just find out what's going on. There might be more people working in those silos rather than engaging and connecting together. When people are commuting, you know, they talk about the etiquette of in this environment. So we know, well, most people know if we're in an office environment, you know, we shake hands, we're all very nice, we're polite, we know what to say and what don't to say. But when it comes to this platform, depending on the formal or informality of the setting, you know, has there anyone given any guidance to you or your teams? What's the do's and don'ts? You know, is it okay to be dressed down, not dressed down? Is it okay to sit and have a smoke or a cup of coffee or whatever the case may be? You need to decide, but there is etiquette out there, netiquette, I think they call it, over the internet, for what's right and not in the way we communicate. You know, for example, if you're having a team meeting, are cameras on or cameras off? So the etiquette generally would be cameras on, but you may have a different system or process within your company to do that. The other thing I found in terms of communicating is that, which has blown me away personally in all the training that I've delivered, is it almost feels like an intimate gig. So when I've been delivering training to people, it almost feels really, really intimate, where someone is just looking at the screen and it's just you and them to do that. So I don't know whether that's because they're sitting at home with their slippers on, they're in their kitchen, whatever the case may be. But it's amazing the different level of empathy, the different level of self-awareness that people have had with each other. The great thing I found when I'm delivering training is that if I mention a particular piece of research or something, you know, somebody's going and searching that on the net and they've shared that on the chat. So that's brilliant. You know, I think that's a real positive to it. The slightly negative thing towards I found it is, if you think in terms of social media, that sometimes people can be quite blunt when they just put words, or what they say in words isn't what they would have said if it was in a face-to-face environment. But sometimes what we hear and what someone else says is very, very different. So that can raise a little bit of conflict, because people are saying things that aren't necessarily heard in the way that they are meant for that's concerned. We also have a different communication style, you know, so this is one particular model that looks at whether you're more task orientated or more people orientated. Are you much more deliberate and controlled in what you do, or are you much more spontaneous and responsive? So we need to be mindful of that, because this is sometimes easier to determine in that face-to-face environment where you see people. If people have their video turned off or you're just chatting to them, we need to be mindful that some people are much more comfortable in the platform. We'll even get, you know, the show ponies that are really, really comfortable in this platform, but we need to be mindful of those that are more introverted, and are they able to feel that they have a voice. So really important that you get that right for your teams to do that. The second one I want to talk about is teamwork. You know, it's so important, and there's so many layers to that. This particular model I love in particular, and I think if you can get this right in your organization, you're absolutely on that holy grail. The base of it starts with trust. So without trust, we can't have conflict. You know, we genuinely need to be able to build trust. So it's your responsibility as an individual, and if you're responsible for people, to give the space, the time, and the platform for trust to be established and to be built to do that. That's really, really important. Because if we don't have trust, then we're not going to expose our vulnerability, and that's important to build that really highly effective team. If we have trust, then it's okay to disagree. We can have that level of conflict, and we know there'll be conflict. But if there's conflict without trust, it can take a whole different road, you know. So we need to make sure there is that trust so that we can have those constructive debates of ideas. With that, then people will commit to the decisions to do that there, and they're much more open to offer their opinions. And then we can hold each other accountable. We can have a plain action plan and hold each other accountable for that there. And that ultimately will lead to getting your collective results. But it starts with trust. Really, really important to build that collaboration of teamwork to do that. other third one I want to talk about today was resilience. It's massive. I find it's almost the most sought after course that I'm certainly delivering. And how do you build your resilience? So when we talk about resilience, we talk about coping. For that, it's been able to tap into the inner resources, the skills and strengths to cope and recover rather from the problems or setbacks, your bounce back ability. That's what we mean by coping. For grit, this is about resilient people don't give up. You know, they find themselves the strength to tackle the problems head on, overcome adversity, and then move on with their life. So that's true grit. Making sense of things. So that's what we mean by sense, you know, making sense of the past experiences. And that's really important, particularly, you know, I think we have to be mindful that even though for many of us work's going ahead and it's normal, there's this undercurrent, which is called coronavirus. You know, we need to be mindful of that and the impact that has for different people and different worries. We need to make sense of things and learn from them, be able to have a sense of purpose and goals for the future. And then emotional intelligence. This is a biggie in here in this whole resilience pack to do that there. So that's been able to analyze and manage the feelings and your emotions and other people's emotions, and to be able to read those emotions, to have the discipline then and the determination to make changes that needs to happen. And this allows you to deal with difficult situations more positively as well, because you have that massive level of empathy where you can put yourself in another person's shoes. That resilience is so important. So if you were wanting to build your resilience, again personally, or if you were wanting to build the resilience of your team, these are the 8 steps that you should think about. You know, the first one is, you know, accept change, get comfortable with it. There's no such thing nowadays almost as business as usual. We have to constantly evolve and move, and we know the speed at which that is going is probably faster than any of us ever thought was possible. But we need to accept change in terms to build our resilience. Then we become that continuous learner. You know, things are changing, so we need to put ourselves out there to learn new skills and then apply them to that change. So I mentioned earlier about we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. That has to be within our DNA now to be successful in this. Then we need to take charge of our own career. So when we're building our professional resilience, we don't hand that mantle over to someone else. We keep control of that ourselves to be able to develop our own selves. You know, we don't have to be reliant on someone else to tell us what course to do. There is an abundance of courses out there and information certainly at the minute that you can tap into if you have the time and if you have the concentration. Then finding your sense of purpose. You know, you're building all in this here, you know. This helps you to, you know, assess any setbacks that you might have and get that broader perspective. So what are you all about? What is your sense of purpose? Why do you do what you do? And that will really help you stay tuned to your own identity. So you're paying attention to that there and to your own values. That all kind of links into each other. Then developing relationships, cultivating real relationships. And this again goes back to making sure there's time. You know, I remember 20, 30 years ago when I was working, there was always seemed to be time to have a cup of tea and a yarn with somebody. But nowadays it was all work. But we need to get back to that. We need to cultivate those relationships and nurture them and that network of people that we have. Then we need to be able to reflect. So we don't want to be the gerbil that keeps running around, you know. We have to be able to stop and reflect on and what do we need to change, and to have an awareness of areas that we need to change as well, and increase that self-awareness. And then reframe how we see things, you know, and talents and interests. I know for resilience, one of the techniques that I would use with people that I'm delivering that is like, okay, let's think about this time in 5 years' time. Let's look back, you know, what does this really matter now? So we need to be able to be resilient as well in terms of whatever it is that we're going through. So that can help you, or some steps for you to help build your teams as well. So I mentioned earlier that I would develop human insights programs for different companies. I do it for the Met, but I've also did it for on the Shared Skills program for Nuida, Fintrue, Deloitte, PwC. I've worked with our library, local councils, Merchant Hotel, etc. But Brendan Monaghan, who started Nuida 13 years ago, he was doing a blog just last month talking about why a change in approach to people management is critical in the new remote workplace. And he believes that a big part of it comes down to communication and trust. You can see why the importance is. So you can see that empirical research that was done along with industry that's really applied. And I can see this. I can see this in these businesses that I work with. Finshu, who have 450 employees, are an investment bank that started in Northern Ireland, came to Northern Ireland a few years ago. Dara McCarthy is just CEO. I've been delivering the human insight programs with them since they started. They now have 450 staff between Belfast and Northwest. And Dara had said that sectors and companies that will evolve are more technology enabled and they're much more agile. So again, we come back to that agile working environment, workplace, etc., and they can keep going. He was saying they've actually recruited over this pandemic 75 staff, so they're growing. And he shared in this interview in the Irish News on the 4th of June that March and April have been their best months. So it's not all doom and gloom, you know, but all of their workforce, so their 450 staff are all remote working, you know, so, but he was delighted that Northern Ireland had the technology to be able to cope with that well. Another thought leader on this particular subject, Angelo, you know, she said, I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made you feel. So again, coming back to that research, that human insights and being able to have empathy, connect with people, and really have a relationship and nurture those relationships. That's important. So the question I want to leave you with today is, do your teams, and do you, because maybe you're like me, you're an independent worker, a sole trader, do you or your teams have the right skills for remote working, you know, and do you have a strategy and plan for the long haul to do that? So my final thoughts that I want to leave you with this afternoon is the ability to be resilient, to learn, adapt, and continuously improve in the face of such a challenge will be vital. And we need to ensure that we don't press the pause button on development, but continue to invest in the skills of the workforce. Thank you so much for listening today. I really, really appreciate it and would welcome any questions that you have. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Siobhan. So yeah, as we've been going through, I've been getting a few questions. So I'm just going to put them to you and see, you know,
if I can answer them.
The discussion. Yeah, no worries. So first one we've got is, how would you ensure productivity for employees when working from home? So obviously that's different from organisation to organisation and sector to sector, but I suppose in general terms, like how would you look to ensure productivity for employees having to work at home or work from home?
So productivity is very closely linked with engagement, and people management did a very recent piece of work on that, and about 250 small to medium businesses in the UK, and it is very, very closely linked, and it has to be linked to outputs. So rather than thinking about in terms of how much time does this person have, and it depends on the type of leader that you are, but if there's very clear goals, very clear outputs that somebody has to produce, and the employee feels engaged, then that's very much linked to productivity. So I think clear communications, clear goals that needs to be set, and making sure that employee feels engaged.
Okay, great. And then sort of linked on in terms of productivity, but the sort of top end of the thing. So how would you manage or engage an employee or employees who can't unplug, so they don't feel like they can disconnect because they're constantly at work nearly?
So I think that comes down to culture, if I'm honest there as well. So different organizations have different culture. I think it's great if you're a leader and you have identified that within your team, and your team has felt an open enough dialogue to be able to tell you that, then it is your job to support that. And there's lots of tools out there that can help you do that. And the first is having a conversation about it. You know, that is where they admit it. If you're this kind of person yourself who finds it difficult to unplug, then you need to set yourself some boundaries to be able to do that. You know, have a clock off point to do that. Give yourself, understand why it is that you're not clocking off. Is it because the workload that you have is too much? Is it that there's maybe other stuff going on in your world and you don't have those 8 hours a day? It's about having a conversation with, if you're working for somebody in that particular case, and if you are the leader, making sure that your team knows that they can talk to you about it. But we need to, it's like, if we phone up, if we have an IT problem, the first thing somebody's going to say is, turn off your computer and turn it back on again. We need to turn ourselves off too. Sometimes we need to unplug ourselves from everything and plug ourselves back in again.
Brilliant. And I'm going to go and unplug myself after this session. Just last one. So a bit of a technology angle to this one, but still on the human skill side of things. So how would you sort of engage or suggest working with staff who are finding remote working difficult in terms of actually working with the technology?
Supporting them is the best thing that I can say there. It's about finding the easiest platform. So I mentioned to you there how I had 6 different platforms to deliver on. And interestingly, I was delivering training on Tuesday to a group of people, and the platform that we used, the connectivity was really, really poor. So it took me about an hour and a half to deliver what should have been half an hour. So that makes a big change. And what they then said to me is, like, can we go onto Zoom? So it wasn't Zoom, but can we go onto Zoom, which we changed to. So I think it's about finding the best platform for them and supporting them. Don't expect that everybody can just learn really quickly and that they're agile enough to do that. We're all different. So I think it's been fair to understand that what support that each individual needs and then giving them that, we can't just expect people to be able to convert to work from home and using all the technology without giving them the tools to do that.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I think that wraps up the Q&A session and probably leads on quite nicely in terms of that sort of employee support piece. Just for me to quickly chat through some of the areas that the college can support companies in and some of the programs that sit around that. So obviously Siobhan's been going through a lot of sort of the human skills that are needed with remote working, and then there's obviously the sort of more technical side of the house that last question alluded to. So just to let you know, I'm David Phelan. If I didn't introduce myself at the top of the webinar, I'm David Phelan. I work for the it's a bit of a mouthful, the Centre for Economic Development and Social Inclusion team at Belfast Met, and essentially it's our role to engage with industry and support companies in a range of upskilling, training and innovation programs essentially. So just to chat through a few of those quickly. Connected today is thankfully funding this webinar and our whole webinar series. So as I said at the top of the webinar, that's really a program where DFA are providing funding so that academia such as Belfast Met College, the whole college network and the university network can engage with industry on a range of different areas linked to really knowledge transfers or sharing the knowledge coming out of the academic programs, but also allows colleges and universities to work together as well. So it's very much about collaboration between industry and academics and within academia. So it's a really brilliant program, and I'll share some more details following off the back of this webinar. And then just to chat through some of our sort of skills focused ones. So if looking at the skills focused program, linking into some of the areas that Siobhan's looked at, we have fully funded training available, courses for companies, private sector with under 250 staff, and some of the areas that we can look at courses are in the likes of Institute of Leadership and Management. So for any of those aspiring supervisors, team leaders or managers and or directors looking to make the next step, but also maybe back up your, maybe you've been in a role for a while but don't have any formal training or qualification to assist you in that role. We can look at a range of ILM qualifications that will be fully funded, and some of those courses will be coming down further down the track, and for the moment will be delivered through online training. But we've got a lot of technical training areas as well. So whether there's courses in construction, engineering, whatever your sector is, through to some of the more IT or technology-based courses in cybersecurity and software development, etc. There's a whole range of courses there, and I say Department for the Economy are fully funding those programs through the next academic year. For my more tailored perspective, we have a program called Innovate Us. So if you are, I suppose, self-trained in something, or you want to know how to do something better linked to a new product or process or service, we can look at fully funding one-to-one technical mentoring with an academic in the college to really transfer those skills in a very show and tell way. And those sessions have, in the old world, pre-COVID-19, would have been like one-to-one. So in your workplace or coming into the college, that is now all moved online now with a bit like Siobhan's session today, video-based screen sharing to transfer that knowledge and skills. So it's a really great way for any smaller companies. So any companies with under 50 staff, we can look to pair up with an academic and work through anything from new product development, service development. As long as it has an innovative angle to it, we can look to support you with that. And then last but not least, innovation vouchers. So if you've had a really great idea of a new product, whether that's physical, tangible, or a new service where it's like an online platform or something digital, an innovation voucher run by the Invest Now team can essentially give you a digital check to go and spend £5,000 with a college or university to essentially develop a prototype or proof of concept for you. So if there's something you have a really great idea, but you actually don't know how to do it, you don't have the skills yourself, but you know it will work, you know your audience, you know your market, and you know that you've got commerciality to that product or service, that the innovation voucher scheme is perfect for that, where we can develop a product or a prototype or a proof of concept that you can then go and show potential buyers or potential investors. Here's how this idea will look and feel and run. So the last call for innovation voucher just closed last week, but there'll be another call in another 2 to 3 months. So now's the perfect time to get in touch with the college to discuss your idea and really flesh out what that might look like when it comes to the actual Invest Night call. And last but not least, just to let you know, we do have a series. I think we've got another 3 webinars coming up. So next week, unfortunately, I think it's already sold out, but we do have a webinar led by one of our colleagues, Yvonne Gamble, looking at how to build your own business dashboard in 30 minutes. So a real whistle-stop tour of building KPIs and business-based dashboards in Power BI. We do have a new product development webinar coming down the track in another few weeks, looking at ideation and creativity, not linking into some of the things that Siobhan's discussed today. And then last but not least, we'll have a machine learning webinar for the SME sector. So really looking at how can SMEs tap into machine learning and gain value out of that emerging technology. So if you probably got a link or an email to sign up for this webinar, you can follow that same one or look for us up on Eventbrite. So it's www.cedsi.eventbrite.com, and you can see our upcoming webinars and sign up for those. But I suppose that just leaves me to thank you all for attending today. Thank you to Siobhan for leading us through that webinar. Loads of great insights in terms of the human angle and also some of the local success stories, like say Nuida and Fintru, and how they're really seeing some positive impacts on remote working and how that might be, I know everyone's using it, the new normal. But yeah, some great insights to think about the driving the people side of things, and not just that technology is always the golden bullet or the solution to all our problems. But enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you can all go and unplug for the rest of the afternoon. Thanks very much. See you later.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Cheers.
Thank you.